So, hello everyone, thanks for coming. Today I'll be talking about obfuscation. This is work that I did with Whadda, who I visited in Paris at ENS last summer. This is a talk that I'll be presenting next week at PKC and also later at an affiliate event at Eurocrypt. So if you see any typos or if there's things that I can explain better, please let me know. So what is obfuscation? The goal of obfuscation is that you're given a program and then you're obfuscating it, meaning you're going to basically rewrite it in a complicated way. So it still has the same input and output behavior, but everything else is hidden. You don't see the implementation details and stuff like that. And this could be useful to prevent other people from reverse engineering your code, for example, or if you have cryptographic keys in your program, then you can use obfuscation to hide those. Also, if you're patching a security vulnerability, if you're just doing it in the clear, then adversaries can look at the security update and see, they're patching the problem, and then they can exploit that problem in other places where you haven't updated the software yet. So those are use cases. And here's an example. There are obfuscation tools that exist. If you just Google obfuscation, there's these obfuscation thingies. So I wrote some JavaScript code. What this does, it takes the password from a text box, checks if it's equal to password pass123, and if it's equal, it outputs, it prints hello world, and otherwise it does nothing. So this is a silly example, but if you put this in these tools, then you get something like this. So at first sight, it might look obfuscated, but it's really not. Here you can see password, so PVD, so there's a variable called password. That's not hidden. And then if you look here, the X70, that's a P, X61, that's an A, X73, that's S, you have two S's. So it just spells pass123, and this thing spells hello world, so you're really not doing a good job at obfuscating. But there's better tools, for example this one. The same code, and you get this large chunk of code. It's a very small font, so you probably can't read anything, so it's a good obfuscator. Except that it's not, because here it just says DVD equals password, pass123. So it's not very good at it. So it's clear that we need real cryptographers that come up with real security definitions and can build actual schemes that meet these security definitions. And there's actually two of those security definitions that exist. First one is virtual black box security. That's a very strong security notion, and it really says that your obfuscation acts like a black box. You can query, given the inputs, you can get the output, but everything else is hidden. It's very strong, and in some sense it's too strong because we can show that it's not possible to build a black box obfuscator for general circuits. There are some families of functions that you just cannot obfuscate like this. So people looked at weaker definitions. One of them is indistinguishability obfuscation, and we're still trying to find constructions that do this. And it might exist, it might not. But in this work, we will focus on virtual black box obfuscation. But since we know it's not possible for general circuits, we have to focus on some simple functionalities. A very informal definition of virtual black box is everything that you can learn from an obfuscation, you can also learn from black box services. And to make this a little bit more formal, this says that if there's an adversary that takes as input an obfuscated program, then there also exists a simulator that does not get that input, but it can make queries through a black box, and you can output the same thing. It simulates the adversary. So in this paper, we study an obfuscation scheme for pattern matching. So that's a very restricted functionality because we know we can't do general circuits, so we have to focus on something. And pattern matching with wildcards, it's this functionality. So you have a pattern, which is a string of 0, 1s, and wildcards. And then for every pattern, there's a pattern matching function, which takes an input, which is just 0s and 1s, and it outputs 1 if it matches the pattern. So for example, in this example, the pattern is 0, 1, star 0, 0. If the input is 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, it matches, because everywhere where the pattern specifies it should be 0, 1, it is 0, 1, 0 or 1, and where it's a wildcard, in this case you have a 1, so it's accepted. And if you have the all 0 string, it's not accepted, because the pattern says there has to be a 1 in the second position, and there's a 0. So it's this functionality that we want to obfuscate. Okay, so in our paper, we analyze a previous construction that was presented at Crypto last year. And we give much better security proof. It's simpler, we prove stronger results, and we use weaker assumptions. Actually, it's a new assumption that we introduce, and we prove that it's weaker than the generic group model, which is the assumption that was used in the original paper. And we also give attacks that show that the security results that we prove are actually optimal. We cannot prove anything better because there's a text. And we also have some other results. We proved the security of some other obfuscation schemes from our new assumption. And we do that because it's really much, much simpler. So I would say if you ever are in a situation that you have to prove something in the generic group model, you should check if you can use koala instead, which is our new assumption, because it gives really easier security proofs. And it's stronger, because koala is weaker than the generic group model. We also improved the efficiency of the original construction a little bit, and then we tried to fix it, because there are some attacks we want to fix the scheme to have full virtual black box security, but we argue that it seems impossible to do this. So that's a bit disappointing. Okay, so this is what the talk will look like. First, I'll explain what this obfuscator does, how it works. Then I'll introduce our new assumption, and I'll give a brief overview of our analysis of the scheme. Then we try to improve it, and then I'll end with a conclusion. Okay, so this construction works based on polynomial interpolation in the exponent group. So I'll explain. So if you want to obfuscate a pattern, what you do is you pick a random polynomial of degree n-1, where n is the length of the pattern. And you pick it in such a way that f of 0 is equal to 0. So the constant term of the polynomial is equal to 0. And then for every I and j, where I runs from 0 to n-1 and j is 0, 1, you put Vij either equal to some evaluation of the polynomial if the pattern at position I is a wildcard, or if the pattern at position I is equal to j, and otherwise you just put some random element of f. And then you compute a bunch of group elements, group elements, which are just G, which is a generator of your group. You raise it to the power Vij, and those are the elements that you give out. So that's the obfuscation. So, for example, if you want to obfuscate this pattern, 0, 1, wildcard 0, it's 8 group elements, and it's a matrix, and in every column, if it's a 0, the upper one is G to the power, so the evaluation of f. If it's a 1, the lower one is G to the power, evaluation of f. And if a wildcard, they're both of this form. And the other ones are just random elements. So this is the obfuscated program. So how do we evaluate this program? So given an x, which is just a bit string, we're going to compute these interpolation coefficients. So these are just a formula. It's really old, it's to Newton, I think. And so you compute this for every CI. And then you do this polynomial interpolation in the exponent. So let's look at the example. So you pick elements hi, xi. So the elements that you pick depend on your the input. So for example, if you're given input 0, 1, 1, 0, then you pick this element, this element, this element, this element. And then you compute this product with the interpolation coefficients that you've computed as powers. And then what you get is this. So it's really just g to the power this thing. And you've chosen your interpolation coefficients in such a way that this is equal to f0. So you're interpolating 0. And you've chosen the polynomial f in such a way that this is 0. Right, so in this case, this product that we compute is equal to the identity element. So we output 1 to say that it matches the pattern. And you can see if it does not match, then at some place you pick a random element. So this exponent will just be a uniformly random element in FP. And so this will not be equal to the identity element with overwhelming probability. So that's how it works. And the question is this secure? And this is the statement that they proved in the paper, the Crypto 18 paper. And what they prove is something called distributional virtual black box security. And basically what that says is it is like virtual black box security. It doesn't reveal anything beyond black box access, but only if the inputs are sampled from some certain distribution. So this is a much weaker statement than real virtual black box. And it's also not useful in practice, because in practice you're going to obfuscate some program that's useful for you and not just some program that you sampled from some random, from some distribution. And they prove it for the distribution of, the uniform distribution of patterns with a fixed amount of wildcards. So yeah, it doesn't seem very useful, but they also didn't give any attacks, so maybe the scheme is more secure than just this thing. And this will turn out to be the case. Okay, so now I'll talk about our new assumption. It's called Whadda. It stands for knowledge of orthogonality assumption. So this is about if there is a vector space, a subspace of fp to the n, then when can we distinguish sets of group elements of this form? So g to the v1, g to the v2, up to g to the vn, where v is a vector sampled at random from the subspace. When can we distinguish these things from just n uniformly random group elements? And one way to do this is if you know a non-zero vector that's orthogonal to v, then distinguishing is easy. You just compute this thing, which is equal to g to the power the inner product of v and u. And if this thing was of this form, then this is g to the power inner product of v and u, that's 0. And if it was uniformly random, then this will be some uniformly random value, assuming that u is not 0. So it will not be equal to the identity element with overwhelming probability. Okay, and now our assumption basically says that this is the only way to distinguish. It says that a cyclic group satisfies our assumption if an adversary can only distinguish if it can also produce a non-zero vector that's orthogonal to our vector space. So he doesn't know this, he doesn't have to know the vector space, but there is some extractor that can produce a vector that's orthogonal. So this seems a very strange assumption, but we actually proved that it's true in the generic group model. So if you believe that generic group model is something sensible, and many people do, then this is also a good assumption. So it's weaker than the generic group. Okay. So now, to prove that this is a useful assumption, I'll show you how to obfuscate a simple obfuscator. So this is an obfuscator due to Canetti, and it obfuscates point functions. So a point function is a function, for every x there's a point function dx that is equal to 1 if the input is equal to x and it outputs 0 otherwise. And this obfuscator from Canetti is really simple. So it works in the case where this x and y are in FP. So to obfuscate a function, it just outputs two group elements. The first one is equal to g to the power xr, where r is some uniformly random element of FP, and the other one is g to the r. And to evaluate this program, when you add input y, you just check if I1 is equal to, if h1 is equal to h2 to the power 1. So it's easy to see that this is correct, but it's actually not easy to see that this is secure. It looks very simple, but you cannot prove this from like Diffie-Hellman assumption or anything. In the original work, this was proven in the generic group model, and this was a proof of 14 pages long, so it's not simple at all. But from Whadda, it's really simple to prove this. So here's a sketch of the proof. So remember, we're proving virtual black box security, so that means that if there's an adversary that learns something, then there has to be a simulator that learns the same thing only through black box access. So given such an adversary, there's two possibilities. The first possibility is the adversary does not distinguish elements of this form from random elements. But in that case, we don't really have to do anything. The simulator just picks random g to the power r1, g to the power r2, runs the simulator on this, and then outputs this. And A doesn't distinguish between those cases, so the output distributions are the same. So that's a good simulator. And the other case, if A does distinguish, then our assumption, the Whadda assumption says that we can use this to extract a non-zero vector that's orthogonal to the vector space that looks like this. And so we can get non-zero A and B that is orthogonal to x and 1. And it means that x is equal to minus b over a. So then what the simulator does, it just produces a fresh obfuscation of this function and runs a on this and outputs that. So this is exactly the same distribution as was output by the real adversary, because x is equal to minus b over a. Right, so it's really simple. It's like this is a sketch, but the real proof is half a page, so it's really easy. Okay, so now we're going to look at this obfuscator that I explained at the beginning. And I'm not going to go into the details because it's really a lot of technical results. So I'll just give some of the results. So we prove from Whadda that the scheme is 2 to the power n divided by 2 VBB secure. So what does that mean? Original VBB security is if the adversary can learn something in polynomial time, it can also learn it through black box access in polynomial time. Here this means if an adversary can learn something in polynomial time, then you can also learn it in time big O of 2 to the power n divided by 2 from black box access. So it's much weaker, but it's still something. And we did an attack that shows that for every epsilon bigger than 0, the scheme is not this. And so the larger the number, the less strong the security statement is. So really you cannot do better than this because the attacks cover everything lower. Okay. We also proved something about distributional VBB security. We show that for any distribution of patterns which has min-entropy n plus something that grows larger than log of n, it's secure. And there are distributions with min-entropy n minus something that grows larger than log n, for which it's not secure. So yeah, n is like the bound, the best bound that we can. And then another result is that it is virtual black box secure if there's a really small number of wildcards. If there's only big O of log n wildcards, then it's secure. We also show that it's not VB secure if the number of wildcards grows faster than log of n. And there's some more results of this. You can look at the paper if you want. Yeah. Okay, so we've shown there is some security there, but there's also a DAX. So the obvious question is, can we fix the scheme? Can we make it fully virtual backward secure? So that's what we tried to do. We tried for a long time and we failed. So then we tried to prove some impossibility results, and we found some. So it's probably not possible. So I'll explain. If you take a step back and look what their scheme does, it's a program, a pattern just gets translated to some vector, a vector h in group. And the evaluation is just checking whether some product is equal to the identity. And we actually show that for any scheme of this form, if it's correct, you can attack it. So, and that's very general, because we don't assume anything about how the H are formed. We don't assume anything about how the C's are formed. But still we can prove that there is no, well, there's a caveat, but there is no natural, for some definition of natural, linear index form obfuscation scheme for pattern matching that is VB secure, and even stronger, it's not even close to VB secure, because there's this big factor. Right, so that's a disappointing result, because it says, it told us you can stop looking to fix it, because it's not going to work. It just but we found more efficient constructions that have the exact same security. I'm not going to go into that. Okay, so what did we do? We introduced this new assumption called Whadda, which we can use to simplify a lot of proofs. We proved some stronger security guarantees for this obfuscator that was presented at Crypto last year. We also give a text to show that our security guarantees are optimal. And then finally we show this impossibility result that shows that probably it cannot be fixed. So that was disappointing. So, thanks for your attention.